thing. So I switched from Netflix to HBO. Yes, I have HBO now. And I was watching the documentary. It was rather long, too. I didn't expect it to be quite as long as it was. But I watched a documentary over there on Netflix about the Church of Scientology. And again, I'm thinking, well, Rod, you're watching something again that isn't for mindless viewing. You're going to have to pay attention to this kind of stuff. And I did. And as I'm watching this, I'm realizing a comparison that Scientology is a cult. And I'm not even going to get into the Tom Cruise thing. Tom Cruise, I'm sorry, he looks like he's lost it, like he's crazy. That laugh and smile is a crazy man in my book. I don't know if he's really, truly, mentally unstable, but he just looks and sounds crazy to me. And I don't know if it's something that Scientology, it looks, it's at the point where it's almost seems fake. Like everything that Tom Cruise does is highly forced. I'm not buying his ultra happiness. I don't see it. It seems too rehearsed, too forced, too fake, and too insane. I'm just not buying it. I mean, nobody genuinely, for no particular reason, just because they're happy, smiles that big and laughs that way. I mean, I've paid attention to Tom Cruise since the Risky Business days. He was not like that back then. So I'm comparing, I know people change a little bit as they age, but wow, he's not the same person. I mean, this is what people were talking about when he was jumping up and down on Oprah Winfrey's couch talking about how he was in love, and that it did not seem natural. And a lot of people picked up on that. That's not real. He's hiding something. Something's fake. What's going on here? And it really talked about I know there's two sides to every story, but we really saw the dark side of the Church of Scientology. Now, there were certain things that I knew about L. Ron Hubbard and how he came up with and invented Scientology. I did not know the extent of the ruse that this guy came up with for Scientology. I did not fully understand just how devious and how much of a loon this guy appeared to be. L. Ron Hubbard, when you looking at the interviews that he much like Tom Cruise, he seemed a little off. He seemed a little crazy. And some of the pictures that they showed of this guy, I'm thinking, wow, that's either that's one of two things. Either that's evil in his eyes, or that's the sign of insanity right there. That's what I got. That's what I took away from the program. And it was amazing how the church amassed its wealth, and they did one thing that was kind of gutsy and good, is that back in the 90s and 80s and 90s, the church, Miskovich, or whatever his name is, the one who took over after L. Ron Hubbard, he basically took on the IRS head on. And they won. Because before then, the IRS was saying that you don't qualify for, tax-free status because you're not a real religion in a church. And this guy, who very determined, very, look, let me tell you something. If the mafia had this guy leading the crime syndicate, they'd still be in business right now and on top of their game. Because this guy is something else. You don't do to the IRS what the IRS tends to want to overwhelm you with government might. Well, he flipped it on the IRS. When the IRS was not giving the Church of Scientology their tax-free status, religious status, he decided that he was going to sue the IRS in multiple states. He literally had all of these people individually file lawsuit against the IRS while the church itself also filed lawsuit. So basically at the same time, so he overwhelmed the IRS. And the IRS was shocked. Whoa, who can do that? Nobody does that to the IRS, but he eventually won. Now, that isn't a person who's determined because he has a certain religious belief. That's a man who's determined because there's a lot of money at stake. A lot. If they lost their case and the IRS said that, the church was going to be bankrupt, they owed like $1 billion in back taxes and penalties. And they only had like a $250 million worth of assets at the time. And then all of a sudden, they got this tax-free status. All that's lifted. They start expanding. They start buying properties. And now the church has a value of well over $3 billion. And they have a church membership of less than 50,000. And you're listening to all these people tell the different stories. There are certain things that are backed up by other events that have been recorded, and it's amazing. I'm surprised they haven't killed any. I'm really surprised they haven't really killed anybody, but I see why they don't have to. Now, I did not because I don't. All I did was read Dianetics. I didn't realize I didn't even read the whole thing because I thought it was rubbish. But I didn't realize the extent that they go through to achieve this clear process or designation in this thing that they call an e-meter. And it's really amazing how people fall into this trap. And the problem is that these people that are administering this test, if you will, or this therapy, if you will, like a psychiatrist or psychologist, they're taking extremely copious notes. And they get into some details. And you would think, you're talking to somebody like your priest or your pastor or something, the confessional. That information that's passed between the two of you is supposed to be sacrosanct and they tell nobody. Well, evidently the church, in order to keep people in line, will use that against them sometimes, against the members, to keep them members. And I began, now you're probably thinking, what the hell does Scientology have to do with, pop culture and politics, Rod? Well, as I'm sitting there watching this program all the way through, I begin to see correlations, similarities between the Church of Scientology and democratic liberalism. There is a tremendous amount of similarity. See, it doesn't matter what the truth is. These people in Scientology, much like liberals, will try to bully, will try to manipulate, will try to hide the truth, will even go so far as to do things that are rather shady, possibly even illegal, in order to achieve their end. And yes, the Church of Scientology, according to this documentary, did do certain things that push the envelope and push the limit of legality. I mean, there are some things that these people were saying that I'm thinking, well, that's not legal. And we get the same thing with the Democrat Party and liberalism. They do things that you can look at and say, whoa, that's not legal. But they're supposed to be out there telling you, well, they are telling you, but they're supposed to be out there and claiming that they are for the little guy. When they can't continually berate the little guy, they bully the little guy. At the same time, they try to tell the little guy that without the liberals, they're nothing. Kind of like Scientology, if you don't keep progressing and keep doing these sessions, past the state of clear, and you keep doing, if you don't keep doing these, you're not going to achieve the highest level. And the liberals kind of tell you the same thing. If you do not keep this program, then you're not going to make it without us. You're not going to get to that next level. If you do not keep, things like affirmative action, well, blacks aren't going to make it. They can't make it without us. And people get brainwashed into believing this kind of nonsense. It is nothing more, the liberalism is nothing more than a cult. Now, surely, a lot of people say, well, liberalism is a mental disorder. Well, cultism is a mental disorder. And frankly, after looking at some of these people on this program about the Search of Scientology, again, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so I can't make a psychological affirmative determination, but they look crazy to me. And being crazy is a mental disorder. There is a huge correlation, folks. I mean, it was kind of frightening at the same time as I began to put the two together, as I began to compare in my own mind. This is why I wasn't able to, just sort of veg out. But this sort of, how can I put this? This sort of, they were out there basically just trying to keep people in the program. They were just trying to keep, in any means possible, keep people in the church by any means necessary. The Democrats are out there trying to keep liberalism alive and trying to keep people on the liberal side by any means possible. They will try to stay in power by any means possible. That means by cheating in elections. And look, this whole notion that, there's no electoral fraud. Yeah, that's why people have, over the past couple of elections, people have gone to jail, mostly on the Democrat side. Many of them from that organization that we once called Acorn. People have actually gone to court, been fined, and have been sent to jail. You don't hear that from the left lamestream media, but they have. Look, this is a cult, folks. I realize that is what liberalism is. It's another type of religious cult. And one of the things that you have to do in order to defeat your enemy, Sun Tzu says it, you have to know your enemy. And when you know what your enemy is all about, you know who your enemy is, you know how they think, that's how you can defeat them. And we, as being conservatives on the right side of the political aisle, if we want to preserve our Constitution and preserve our country, we have to fully understand what the left is all about. How they think, how they operate. They're nothing more than a cult. They do nothing more than try to brainwash people into believing what they say. And there's many types of brainwashing technology. There's plain manipulation. There's repeating the same lie over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And of course, there's beratement. If you don't agree with them, then you're a racist, or you're a sexist, or you're a homophobe, and they keep saying it until you bend, because you don't want to be called that. You don't want to be considered that. You don't want to be looked at that way. So you sort of cower. You cover your head and say, "I'm not a racist. I'm not a homophobe. I'm not a bigot. I'm not this. I'm not that." And you start to capitulate to what they're saying. You can't do that. You got to understand this is their tactic. This is nothing more than cultish behavior. And as with any cult, there's only so many people who get to enjoy the full fruits and benefits of being in the cult, and those are the people at the top. Just like at Church of Scientology, only the people at the top are enjoying all the lavish lifestyle. Tom Cruise, yeah, he's a big star, and they treated him well, but there are lots of other people that didn't get the same kind of treatment. So you really have to pay attention to what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're saying it, and you have to stand up for your own beliefs and not be belittled by what they say. Because, frankly, folks, they don't have the ability to really tell you that you can't make it without them. So you have to really go in and change their